Got the Deus HF coil here, and now I'm going to give you a couple cheats with the Deus. After about 700 or 800 hours of use, I'm starting to figure out the Deus a little bit, and it's been a long struggle, right, with the Deus. There's so many settings, so many programs, and the ground balance issue, you know, I'm still trying to work out, but I think I've figured the ground balance out a little bit. I have a program that I've been developing, and it works pretty good for most soils, or two programs that works pretty good, and that is a Deus full programs. I have a deep program and I also have a fast program based on the Deus fast program and the deep program, right? So I have two different kinds of hunting. I have coin hunting that I'm going to just go out and smack all the coins within 6 inches deep, and I also have a deep program that I want to penetrate deeper in the soil, but my deep program doesn't work in a lot of the trashy areas because I get so much interference by the minerals in my soil, the salt in my soil, the EMI, the other detectors who are detecting around me. I just get a lot of EMI, right? And it's hard to stabilize a machine in a deep program. But I've figured it out, you know, figured out how to get past all those complexities of the settings of the Deus, and that whole, just to generalize that setting, is full tones, right? I've tried in pitch, I've tried 2, 3, 4, and 5 tones. I do use pitch tones, but I mostly use full tones. If you watch my videos, I mainly use full tones. But I struggled for months with trying to dial in this detector with the stock programs, and this is not a turn on and go machine. You will have struggles too if you start using the Deus, and if you have it in 2, 3, 4, 5 tones, you're going to struggle just as much as me. And I eat, sleep, and breathe metal detecting, right? If I'm not metal detecting, I am sleeping, right? If I'm not thinking about metal detecting, actually, I dream about metal detecting all the time, so I'm just metal detecting all the time, right? Full tones is the way to go, right? If you're starting out with the Deus, full tones is a good way to start. If you start out in 2, 3, 4, 5 tones, you're going to have a lot of heartaches like me, right? Pulsing on the iron, getting all those clipped tones, not being able to find your targets, not being able to pinpoint your targets. 2, 3, 4, 5 tones, you have to discriminate. So once you start discriminating on machines, that's when you run into problems. Full tones, you can still discriminate and still hear that iron in the ground and still get those higher conductive targets or those non-ferrous targets out of the iron, right? But you can still hear the iron if you're all the way down in -6.4 discrimination. So the Deus has a really rich, broad range of iron, and that's what I like about it, because I can hear every little speck of salt in the ground, man. And you want to hear all that stuff. You want to hear it. You want to hear the iron. You want to hear the minerals. But you can discriminate in full tones, but you're going to get a clipped audio still, right? Because you're discriminating. And you can make a few other adjustments to the Deus and not discriminate. Still hear all those iron tones in the ground, still hear all those minerals in the ground, and still get those higher conductive targets or non-ferrous targets that are in that contaminated soil, iron or whatever, or nails or whatnot. But I've just, through my hours, lots and lots of hours of testing, the 2, 3, 4, 5 tones is not doing it for the Paystreak, because I hear all those nails and they're giving me high tones. So once I start raising my discrimination up in the 2, 3, 4, 5 tones, I start getting a clipped audio, and I want to hear a clean tone on a non-ferrous target. That's what you want in all your metal detectors. You want to have that iron rejected. You know, you still want to hear the iron, but you don't want the iron to give you a falsing tone, which is a high tone. I'll go to stock program here, right? The stock programs on the Deus are not really intended to use, right? They're intended to develop a program, to dial it in, and then save that program, give it a name, and save it into the programs. And because every site's different, right? Whenever I get to a site, I'm adjusting it a little bit. So I'm in Deus Fast program right here, right? Just sweep over a bunch of nails here, right? So the Deus Fast program puts me in 14.4 kilohertz frequency to start out with, and the discrimination at, I think, 6.1. I don't really know. 6.1 discrimination, right? It's not quite discriminating those iron nails, those nails out, right? And it's really loud. The iron tones are really loud in 2, 3, 4, 5 tones. So you have to make a lot of adjustments. And here's just a little tip here. If you start out this machine, trying to run this machine like your other machines, you're gonna struggle just like me, right? I tried it in 2, 3, 4, 5 tones. I try to adjust all those tone breaks, and it just makes it so confusing. To simplify the Deus, put it in full tones and discriminate a little bit. Discriminate up to 6 or 8 or 10 or whatever. But if you can hear all that iron in the ground, you're gonna get a lot more non-ferrous targets out of the iron, right? This hour I'm gonna run the Deus, full tones, minus 6.4 discrimination. But this stock program, the Deus Fast program is not, it's not a turn on and go to machine. You have to make a lot of adjustments to develop the programs to suit your site or to suit your conditions. The wet soil, this coil does better in wet soil than the X35 coil, and I've just had a lot of trial and errors with just realizing that, you know, this is my wintertime wet soil hunting because I have so much minerals in my soil here. It just wants to false on all those minerals in the soil. The X35 coil falses on all the minerals in the ground there. So when the soil is really wet, I don't use my X35 coil. I use the HF coil. So I have to discriminate all this stuff out. So once I start discriminating that, I'll go up just a few points here. I'll discriminate it out, but I'll lose on some of those targets down the ground there that are within the field of the iron there, right? There's those nails. And I can drop the iron down a little bit here. I'm 3-tone, so I'm not really fancy on the 3-tone then. I'll drop the iron volume down to 1. But when you drop the iron volume down to 1, you are filtering out that iron, right? You are putting another filter on the iron, and you can't hear it in the ground there. I want to be able to go over a target, right? There is a dime right here that's been sitting there for about 4 months, right here. 14.4 kilohertz. 3-tone stock Deus program. I just dropped the iron tone down there. I'm getting a lot of broken tones there, right? And it's not even hitting it. Not even hitting it very good. I mean, sure it's hitting it, but it's going to hit on all those other nails in the ground there. See? Falsing on the nail, right? Falsing on the nails. I showed you up there with the same settings. It was falsing on the nails at this discrimination. I'll just do away with that 3-tone then. And what I would normally do, how I started the Deus out, I started out in the stock programs, and I just started developing programs, and I've had a lot of programs that I don't use anymore, and I've basically redeveloped those programs that I've saved. So every time I get to a site, I'll just change a few settings and then save that over another setting and another program. And I've had a lot of struggles with other people's programs. You know, you're going to struggle with this program too. And I'll show you the program if whatever it's worth to you, right? The Deus in full tones is really good at getting coins. The pitch programs is really good at getting relics, right? But in pitch tones, you have to discriminate. And like I said, discriminating has its ups and its downs. And I think it has more downs than ups. Full tones, you can hear everything in the ground, and you're getting more out of the ground. You're getting more junk, but you can hear those good targets out in that junk. And I've been given a lot of programs, you know, like for my V3i or my Amphibio, my even the Deus, the Equinox. You know, I try to use other people's programs, you know, that have it on YouTube or on some forums, and they never work, right? Your conditions, your soil conditions are so much different than mine, and every day is different. You know, if it rains right here, my detector acts all different, right? So just the hours that you have to put into the Deus are, you know, a struggle. But once you get the machine dialed in, you will be getting targets out that no other detector can get. And that's the truth. That's the fact. But there's just so many struggles that I have with the complexities of, like, the audio response, the silencer, the audio overload, the sensitivity. I usually keep my sensitivity just as high as I can go, right? In the 90s or in the higher 80s. And I can change the frequency. If you change the frequency, like on this right here, I'm getting some email right now. And I'll just change the frequency. This is what I do when I first get to a site. I'll just change the frequency. 31 kilohertz, just shut it right up. That's a little tip for you. Change the frequency. Don't drop your gain down. Dropping your gain down, it's not going to do you much good, because your detector is still registering all the iron in the ground there. It's still being overloaded by the iron. So you have to make a bunch of adjustments to not be overloaded by those targets there. If you're in full tones, you know if that's iron overload. You know what to set up. In the 2, 3, 4, and 5 tones, I've just really messed a lot of those programs up in the 2, 3, 4, and 5 tones. But my programs that I use are based on the full tones. I have a deep fast program, or I have a deep program which is full tones, and I have a fast program which is full tones. And they're based on the Deus Fast and the Deep program. And I also have a hot program that I use a lot that's pretty much stock. You know, I'll just make a couple little minor adjustments to it at some trashy sites. But every day is different. Every soil is different. So I'm always having to push buttons if it rains, or if I'm around a lot of EMI. And the Deus will hit deep points, but you have to make a lot of adjustments for it. You know, the Equinox, I struggle with falsing on those nails. The Deus doesn't false on those nails if you're in full tones. If you put in 2, 3, 4, 5 tones, you're going to struggle with that discrimination for a long time, man. A long time. And like I said, once you discriminate, you're in trouble. You're in trouble. You're going to get a lot less goodies out of the ground. And you're going to be digging up more junk, right? More junk. Because the Deus has a lot of settings. And once you adjust one setting, you're going to have to make some minor adjustments to some other settings in there, or it's going to run unstable. But I've figured out that if you make a couple simple adjustments to the Deus, the frequency can get you through a lot of those heartaches that I've experienced. Just change the frequency and the detector will run completely different. And most of the time, if I change my frequency, it quiets it up quite a bit. You know, I don't get as many minerals in the ground, or I get more targets out, and it's just a simple frequency change. And the audio response. The audio response has a huge, huge impact on your EMI and your depth. It doesn't really have an impact on your depth. It has an impact on what you're able to hear on your deeper targets. And those targets just seem to stand out a little bit more if you bump up your audio response just a little bit. If you go too wild with your audio response, you're going to get a lot of EMI. It does go deeper. I mean, this machine can go super deep with the audio response jacked up. But you're hearing all that other crap in the ground, right? When you boost that audio response up. And the silencer, the audio overload, the audio response, those are three things that I really use a lot. With the X35 coil, I use the TX boost, and I drop my gain down, drop my auto response down, so I can stabilize the machine, especially in fast mode or deep mode, or in pretty much any mode. I basically use my programs that I've developed on here. I I don't use the 2, 3, 4, and 5 tones. I just get so much iron. I have to discriminate. I have to drop my auto response down. I have to drop my sensitivity down. I just have to make a lot of adjustments when I'm in a 2, 3, 4, 5 tone program. And even with the pitch program, you have to discriminate too. And it's just, once you start discriminating in with any metal detector, it gets complicated, right? You get broken tones, and you have to rotate on your targets a lot more to make that target stand out a lot more. And with the deeper targets in full tones, it's going to give you the iron grunt if you swing over it too fast. But once you wiggle over that coil there, those coins just seem to stand out a lot more with this Deus. And with other machines too, with other high-end machines, if you swing too fast, you're going to get iron tones on all those coins. But with the Deus, I can wiggle that coil really shallow, really narrow sweeps, just really fast over that target. If I get a low tone, and there's a broad range of those low tones with the Deus. And if I wiggle that coil, I can rotate on that target pretty much all the way around it, and I know it's a coin if I get a high tone or a non-ferrous target. And it can be even in the same hole as iron. With the other machines there, I can, if I swing too fast, I'll just completely reject that target because I'm having to discriminate, right? And with the Deus, I can just swing faster and go over those nails, go over all that non-ferrous without it having falsing on me, and spending all that time rotating on those targets, trying to get a sweet tone out of that nail there. It's not going to happen in full tones, right? You can't get a sweet tone on those nails with the Deus. With other machines, you can. But that means you have to start discriminating with those other machines so you're not getting those sweet tones. But those sweet tones are high tones, right? You can't discriminate on other machines, your high range and your low range, because you're missing out on your jewelry, right? Once you start discriminating, it gets really complicated. And with full tones, I've just realized that I've been getting a lot more coins out of the iron, and a lot more coins out of my hotter soil in the higher frequencies, right? Especially when it's wet out. Like I said, it rains a lot here where I'm at, and the minerals just seem to really be harsh in the wintertime when it's wet out. That's why I use the HF coil, not the lower frequency coil, because I just get so much it becomes a really unstable machine. But that's a little bit about the Deus. It's not a turn-on go-to machine. Hopefully this helps you and can simplify some of the complexities with the Deus that you're fighting. Put in full tones and see what you can get out of the ground. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe.